What does that mean? What does that mean? Because, I mean, there are a number of questions we could raise about it. Where does that go? And what does it mean about the people who actually understand it? It's one thing when I speak and people recognize this as a great love that I have for black folk. That person is a special person, because if you recognize what the whole world, I mean, all of Africa thought it was hate. All of black America from sea to shining sea, every city, every town, every hamlet, every hood thought I hated the black man, except a few. Then my question is, and I want to get this word out, and if you're one of those and you know of another person maybe not listening, try to get the word out to them. What does it mean if you understood 18 years ago that what I was speaking was the most profound love ever heard anywhere at any time? Greater love have no man for the black man than I do. And you heard that 18 years ago and following. What does that make you? Because we're looking at an extraordinary situation. We're looking at a power that even the devil himself hath no power over. We're talking about the power of love. He has no power over that. He has no power. He has no power over the power of love. The devil have no power over the power of love. So if you finally realize that, you say, Pastor Manny, well, I hear you. And you're right, that love fest you had on Friday with black people from all over America, probably from every state, was on that call on Friday. And they now thank you for saying what you said 18 years ago: the black man have no honor, the black man never built nothing, that he's cursed to be a slave here in America. And we realize now that was the greatest love ever spoken to the black man. Nobody has ever loved him. Nobody's ever spoken such love to him. And we now interpret it as love. Couple of questions. One is, and I'll start with the basic one first. What does that mean for the people who at the time I spoke it also heard it? They were in agreement with it when I first spoke it. What does that mean? What does that make you somebody special? And does it make you a prophet? And now what does it mean now? Because going forward, what will the world look like? What will the world look like when black folk accept every word I've said over the past 18 years during the period of prophecy and began to rejoice at the things I've said and began to become whatever God would have them to be? So there are two questions here. Let's deal with the first one first. What does that make of the person who heard me? Heard me 18 years ago talking about black people and understood it was love. It wasn't hatred. It was uber love. What does that mean? And there were very few people. I'm going to tell you that right now. There were not a whole lot of slew of them. You can count them all on one hand. Right. But what does that make that person? Are you one of those persons? And better yet, if you have now come around to the point like the love fest I had on this past Sabbath, and by the way, I'm going to get one of the engineers to put together that tape, let you listen to it. If you were one of the persons that was online on this past Sabbath, Friday rather, not Sabbath, but Friday, Sabbath Eve, what does that make you? I believe, while God is no respecter of persons, I believe that the end times will produce an end time people. I believe that the end times will produce an end time people. I believe that the last shall be first. I believe that we as black or Hamite people have been last, the lowest on the totem pole, shall in the end times shall be first. Not that God is a respecter of persons, but I think that's the way the principles work, and that we shall be a superior people, superior to all people on the planet. I believe that. I believe the time of great superiority is coming. I believe that. Am I prophesying it? Yes, I'm prophesying. Do I have a specific word from Almighty God? Allah. That's what God said. The land where the people shall walk barefoot because the land is holy ground. So, I mean, we're at a very critical time now. I want to hold that. I want you to let me take a sip of this tea here. It's got some honey in it. Thank you. So we're at a point now. Will God protect this special group of people that have heard the sound of love like nobody else has ever heard the sound of love in the history of the universe? Not even Moses' love for the Jewish people, the children of Israel, the children who came out of Egypt, out of slavery. Moses loved them, but not the way David loved them, but not the way I love black people. As I go, I would say wherein it is possible, if you now realize that what I have and what I've spoken over the last 18 years is the greatest love any man has ever had for another man, if you now realize the love is so profound it looked like unusual, wretched hate when you first heard me talk about black folk. It looked like unusual, wretched hate that I had for black folk. But now, through the passing of the years and over the period of time, as time has taken its toll and situations have unfolded, and the words I've said have stood the test of time, and so have I, it appears that the love I have for black folk is so profound that there's never been anybody who loved them the way I loved them. Will all black folk ever come to this realization? I don't know. I don't know. But I'll say this, if you have come to this realization, then what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to act on it? Are you going to, well, you say, well, Pastor, I don't know, what should I do? I expressed on this past Sabbath some of the things that the people did say to me, such as, we thank you for what you've done. Is there a successor? Can anybody pick up the mantle in the event that you die? And you've ran this thing. You've done an excellent job of doing it over the years. I suspect that as I go forward, that perhaps as early as tomorrow or later tonight, God will give me the beginning of the directions in which we should take. Notwithstanding, we've already heard about outlaw the land where the people shall walk barefoot, what we ought to do as men towards our families. But one of the things that, and I'm not sure this is the ultimate, if you will, assignment, but I do want to get to this. Pastor, you might ask, okay, now that we know this, we're special. We black folk are special. We're like the Jews. Because now we have someone that has we have a promised land like the Jews. We have you like we had Moses, like the Jews had Moses. We're special. And we've been given a land of our own, that we've given a name. What does that mean? I'll say this. Let me take another sip of this tea. I'll say this, that I'm not sure what our assignment is, but I can tell you this, it is a mixed multitude assignment. What do you mean by that? I mean that it isn't just for Hamite people, but it's for the Shemite and for the Japheth person as well. Shall be a part of this development to whom God has revealed the truth, there is no way you can be precluded or kept from being a part of whatever this next move of God is. And you have to recognize that God's going to make a move. He's not going to we're in the tribulation, to be sure, and the tribulation is moving, but God's going to make a move towards the elect. You don't have to knock on the door and ask for the opportunity to enter into this great prophecy, a word that God has given. If you have the knowledge and you hear and you see it, you already remember. And nobody can stop, nobody can take you out of this next great move of God, whether you're a Japheth or Shemite. But on the other hand, if you are not, and the knowledge has been locked away, you don't understand the preaching that I do, you don't understand the messages that I have, you don't understand the great love that I display, you don't understand it, then nothing can make you understand it. You're locked out and you can't get in. But if you're in, nobody can lock you out. Does that make sense to you? I could want my very dearest person, relative, or whoever, mother, I could want them to know this, but if God has not revealed it to them, there's nothing I can do. And if God has revealed it, there's nothing I can do to keep them from being a part of the process. There's nothing I've been threatening to teach a message about the Mount of Transfiguration, the 3 disciples that went up with Jesus up on the mountain to meet with Moses and Elijah and to hear the voice of God. So whatever the next move is, and by the way, I knew in my heart back in 2008 how much I loved my brother. I knew that back in 1972 how much I loved my brother when I got out of my car working for Procter & Gamble. I loved him and I wanted to help him. I loved him. I saw him suffering. I loved him. I knew that I loved him then, and I wanted to help him. I just knew this love. I knew then the love I had for him. I was willing to sacrifice my life for my brother. I knew that. I knew that back in 1972. I knew that 50 years ago. I knew how much I loved him. Will you allow me to share something with you now? Will you allow me to share something with you now? And I'll call this the Elder Honaker segment. Ishmael, the sons of Ishmael, the only son of Hagar, whose father was Abraham, who was cursed by the angel of God in Genesis chapter 16, was told he'd be a wild man. Now, he'd be a mighty nation, but he'd be a wild man. And he moved around for a while from here to there, and he did a couple of things here and there, but he never got the blessing. He is now planning. He has now regrouped himself. Elder Honaker, you listen to me. The fact that God would not give him the birthright but gave it to Isaac, he has now created a false god. He has created a false god, and he has created a false prophet, and he has created a false religion. And Elder Honaker, the reason why the Muslims are so angry and the reason why they hate Jews, it goes all the way back to the well of Hagar back in Genesis chapter 16. That hatred didn't just start when David Ben-Gurion marched into Palestine back in 1948 and retook the land that had been desolate for many, many years. Didn't start there. The reason why Muslims are so angry and such violent, why they do jihad and why they are intifadas and why they do fatwa, why they're so violent, why they're so hate-filled. It goes all the way back, Elder Honaker, it goes all the way, Raphael Suleiman. It goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 16 there at the well, where Hagar was with her boy Ishmael. That's how deep that hatred goes. So, I mean, if you think about dealing with Muslims, especially since they're now planning to take over New York, you got to realize that there ain't nothing you can do. That hatred is deep. It is violent. It will kill in a heartbeat. They are now beginning to find after. They're actually Jesse Jackson maliciously and very violently and in a way that was unbecoming, called New York Hamitown. That's a Jewish town. It is Jewish, to be sure. A lot of Jews here. But Brother Suleiman, what we see and have seen over the years of Muslims with suicide bombings, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, we've looked at all the various groups that have formed, and they've all, none of them have formed to find a cure for cancer. They've all formed for warfare over the years. That hatred, that hatred is greater than the misgivings of Hitler and his hatred of the Jews. Hitler would have to get up early in the morning to hate Jews, where Muslims do. They just hate them from day one. A Muslim boy born, he's 12 days old. He's born hating Jews. Brother Suleiman. And now they've come to take New York. And guess how they got it? They got it from the perverts. They got New York from the homosexuals. The homosexual people gave the Muslims, they lied. That boy Mondami lied and said he was a tranny or he supported trannies. But what one needs to understand, Elder Holnaker, the way I love black people, and now it's begun to be realized, I don't know how many, maybe some of these black people come join the church, and maybe they'll start supporting, maybe they'll begin to speak out. But the way I love black people, with a love that's deeper than any man's love you've ever seen, Muslims hate Jews and Christians with a hatred you can't begin to describe. Muslims hate Jews with a depth of hatred that an 18-year-old boy would kill himself just to kill one other Jew, blow himself up to kill a Jewish girl. And so it's important that we understand what's happening now with Mondami. It's important that we understand that they were given that office by the homosexuals and the liberals. That is to say, Mondami would have never gotten 2 votes if it was not for the power of the homosexual vote and the liberals who also support homosexuality. That's how they got that vote. Now, there are some homosexual Christians, a lot of pastors, Brother Suleiman, there are a lot of pastors, men, and especially Hamite men that are homosexual, but they're pastors. You know that. We know that. Everybody knows that. So when I talk about boycotting, calling for a national, and now I'm calling for an international boycott of all Muslims until Mondami goes back to Uganda from whence he came. Who? We're still streaming? My background, my camera. Where's my camera? Sister. All right, everybody, we had an interruption of our power source. We don't want to make any prognostications about why that power source, fainted in the middle of my statement regarding the level of evil of Muslims and who put them in office. Muslims were put in office by the homosexuals and by the liberal media. Now, one of the things about, and I'm going to come back to Hagar, and you're never going to, the angel of God gave a prophecy that said Muslims would never be peaceful people. Even in hell, they would fight. If you read Genesis chapter 16, you'll see, and you can read it for yourself, that the angels prophesied he'd be a warfaring man, and that's never going to change. He will never be a peaceful person, never. And the very fact that Mondami has declared that he is an avowed Muslim, he'll never be a peaceful person, never. There's nothing ever you can give them in the world. They will still be a violent people killing each other, which they've done with the Sunnis and the Shiites in Iraq and other places around the world. But they were given the office, they gave to Mondami the office of mayor, the homosexuals and the liberals. And many of the people in media, it's almost as if people that work in media, 90% of them are homosexuals themselves. And they're very clannish. That is to say, you apply for a job as a journalist, you apply for a job as a reporter or a writer or an editor of one of these newspapers or whatever, they'll seek you out, feel you out to find out if you're straight or gay. And if you're straight, you're probably not going to get hired by New York Times. You're not going to get hired by CNN if you're straight. You're not going to get hired by ABC News or, they will seek you out in it because they want to keep that. And you can understand, they want everybody to be on the same page. They want everybody that works in media to be gay. You can understand that. I mean, you don't have to appreciate it or approve it. I didn't say you have to approve it, but you have to understand it. So here, let me just say this to you. So they're the ones that put Mondami in office. There's nothing, listen, Andrew Cuomo, who I thought was probably as boring as watching paint dry, and Curtis Lee, who didn't have a snowball's chance in a furnace. But on the other hand, that it was a foregone conclusion. They were not going to let me get anywhere near. They weren't going to let me get anywhere near being the mayor of the city of New York. So it's important that we understand the boycott. And I want you just to be very careful. I don't want to leave the fact that no man loves a black man as much as I do. No man hates the Jew and Christian as much as Muslims do. And they're never going to change. You can run around here and talk about Islamophobia and be nice to Muslims. But nobody's going to ever call Muslims to be a people of love. That's not what they do. That's not in their DNA. They are people of war. And not because they're that. Go back to read Genesis chapter 16. Damn it. There shall be a warfaring people. That's the prophecy that came from God. And nothing going to change that. Nothing is going to change that. So you got a bunch of people running around here praying for these Muslims or laying hands on them, talking about Mondami will be a good mayor. Plus, they are liars. They are liars. They're the only religion on the planet that permits 4 different types of lies I mean, they will actually lie. And so what they've done is that Ishmael has finally got himself a false god. Allah is a false. Allah does not exist. Allah does not exist. And Muhammad was a liar. And so so my statement to you is that they must be boycotted. And I only have a few moments left. But first, I call for a local boycott, then a national boycott. I'm calling for an international boycott. Whoever you may, because you got a lot of Muslims in Europe, and many of the nations in Africa are Islamic nations, but you got Christians there as well. And I'm not so sure that the Africans want to get involved in this, but Europeans can get involved in. You have to realize locally, and I'll start here, and I'll be more explicit about this in the days and time to come, is that most poor people eat at the Muslims' table. Most poor people, and they're black people by that I mean, they eat at the Muslims' table. What do you mean by that? Well, let me explain to you. Most poor people don't have the wherewithal to go to Costco's or Walmart or to the larger shopping malls to buy food. So they buy from small stores in the neighborhood called bodegas. And they don't buy all their groceries there, but they eat a lot of sandwiches from there. They drink a lot of drinks from there. They get a lot of their supplies from there. And the person that supplies them that, especially since the 1900s, not the 1900s, since the year 2000, however, are Muslims. Muslims didn't always have the financial, economic power they had. But when the white man moved up here and moved into the ghettos, gentrification, the Muslims moved in as the black people moved out. That's another issue. I simply want to say that if every person who realizes now that Muslims are natural haters, and they are prophesied to be haters until the day that Jesus comes back. They are prophesied to be wild people. Elder Honeka, Muslims are prophesied by the angel of God to Hagar there at that well in Genesis chapter 16 to be a wild man. And that's never going to change. He's never going to be a person of peace. So when you got a preacher talking about he's praying for a Muslim to be the mayor of the city of New York, a wild man to be the mayor of the city of New York, that preacher ain't never been nowhere near God. He's probably homosexual himself. So boycott. No dew, no rain. Boycott the Muslims. Boycott their businesses. And you may say, Pastor Manning, I live in a neighborhood where I don't have a car, and I have to go to the bodega to get some of the things I need. No, you don't. You can go to CVS. You can walk another 2 blocks, or you can walk another 5 blocks. It's good for you. You need to do it, lose some weight, exercise your body. Walk another 5 blocks to CVS or to Whole Foods. Or to get on the bus and go downtown to the Whole Foods store. And you're going to find you're going to save a whole lot more money. If you get on the bus, let's say, for instance, you live on, 132nd Street and 7th Avenue. Well, if you get on the train and go down to Whole Foods, down on, Broadway or somewhere, Broadway and, 92nd Street, somewhere, Whole Foods in that area. So it took you 5 minutes to ride the train down there. Rather than going right to the store on the corner, which is what you're given to do, you're right to the store on the corner. You pay higher prices. You get foods that's probably been peed on by rats. Now, I don't mean to be ugly or anything like that, but the rats in the stores, they got a lot of rats and roaches and cockroaches and mice and all kind of other stuff inside these bodegas, inside these ghetto stores, and everybody knows it. The rats just run when they open the store up in the morning. But they pee on the bread, they pee on the cartons, and you get it, and you take it in, you take it home, you put your hands on it. You got your hands on a carton of milk, a carton of loaf of bread that the rats done peed on from the bodega, and you take it home and you make a sandwich and give it to your children with that rat pee on your hand. No, get on the train, go downtown to Whole Foods, or CVS. They sell a lot of food supplies and stuff in CVS, or to one of the supermarkets. They have a lot of supermarkets downtown on Broadway, only a 5 to 10 minute train ride. Then you got to get yourself a bag where you can carry stuff back and forth. It's a cotton bag with a handle on it, so you can carry, 20 pounds of grocery, 2 bags, and you lose some weight. But stop going to the bodegas. You can do it. You can do it. You also need to realize that the Muslims hate Christians and Jews.